My pleasure to welcome you on the second day of this conference to New York City. Hope you're enjoying your stay and hope you're learning a lot. I had the opportunity 5 years ago, 2011, to attend the first of these conferences in Qatar and watch the extraordinary efforts that are being made there in terms of to make it a sports capital of the world. And learned a lot during that time. So John Stevenson, a good friend of many years, former colleague over at the Metropolitan Police. Mike Hirschman, that also a friend for many years. Pleasure to be with you all here this morning. And again, welcome to all of you in New York City. You had a series of presentations, those of you who were here yesterday. I'm going to reiterate some of those discussions yesterday, very specifically the panel in which the chief of my department, Ed Davis, the former police commissioner of Boston, very good friend, made a series of presentations, particularly around the issues of the Boston Marathon and lessons learned from that event. Sports, as we know, provide entertainment, recreation, economic stimulus, youth development. All of these things that are so critical to the well-being of any city, any country, and certainly the well-being of the world. And ICSS is committed to that idea, that concept, that through sports that we can accomplish so much. So I applaud their efforts to try to bring to this essential element of the human existence a coordinated and collaborative effort to ensure that its essential part in the well-being of our cities, our countries, and our world, that it continues, and continues in a way in which it is not disrupted, but in fact is expanded and expanded in a safe way. All of this, however, is not going to be possible without public safety and venue security. Large event security is a hallmark of the NYPD in this city. And regardless of the result on the field, for the NYPD, it's always the same. Secure venue, safe fans, and a great time. The great time aspect of it is what it's all about, isn't it? The idea to enjoy, winners and losers both. NYPD has detailed experience keeping sporting events safe, probably more experience in this country than any other law enforcement organization. Just in recent days in this city, we had the Super Bowl 48 back in February 2014. We had the annual New York City Marathon this past weekend. We had the US Tennis Open. We had the 2015 World Series. We had at the same time events with the MLB, NBA, NHL, NCAA, and any number of other various special events. The key to successfully securing all of these, and all of them were secured safely. We have had that benefit of looking back, learning from it, but in every instance they were secured safely with no major incidents or disruption. The key is, as you are all about here, collaboration. Collaboration that's focused also around the idea of communication and the idea of preparedness. All three of these are focused on moving toward the same goal, overall public safety for sporting events. Even more critical in the world we live in today, certainly the world post 9/11, as it relates to the issue of terrorism, which is now a primary concern at any major sporting event anywhere in the world. That comes on top of what had always been concerns, which was crowd control and crowd management. Crowd management being the management of the flow of people in and out of venues safely. Crowd control dealing with, unfortunately, those circumstances when crowds get out of control, and the ability to move very quickly and forcefully to deal with those types of incidents. We've seen that any number of venues over the years, soccer games around the world, in other areas in which that is an issue that remains one of great concern to any organization focused on it. Yesterday you had a presentation in which the panel, Ed Davis, former police commissioner, discussed the Boston Marathon. Boston Marathon is something I have a lot of experience with, that grew up in Boston, attended it as a young boy, and beginning in 1970 as I started my police career in Boston, attended just about every one of the marathons for the next 20 years, rising up from a patrolman, standing as part of the security, along the parade route up to the position of police commissioner, having overall responsibility for the security of the venue. So I had a lot of intimacy with it, and when the events of several years ago occurred, the bombing, it really hit hard in terms of my love for that city and love for that oldest and most classic of marathons in this country. As was evidenced yesterday in Ed Davis's presentation, any event that gathers a large number of people together in one location is a prime target for terrorist plots. That day proved that the threats are serious and our vigilance must never waver. The investigation into the attack and pursuit of suspects was a case study on information sharing, interagency collaboration, and tenacious police work. It also allowed us to identify where there were weaknesses, where there were gaps in that coordination and that collaboration. Ed was very outspoken at the time of the events, as well as now continuing in the private sector about things that we needed to learn from that event, and I'm sure he expanded on some of those concerns yesterday with you. The other event that occurred during that has helped to shape significantly how police now focus on the issues of venue security, whether it's sports or anything else that we have to deal with, was the use of social media. One of the things that Ed and his department, the Boston Police Department, were able to do was, for the first time in American policing, was to reach around the mainstream media, the NBCs, the CNNs, the Fox TVs, to very quickly get accurate information to the public, to calm them, to assure them, to correct the inaccuracies of the frenzy of reporting that usually goes on anytime there is a major event and a disturbance, whether it's terrorism or whatever, at a major event, sporting or otherwise. So the embrace of the concept of Twitter and social media was something that came out of the Boston Marathon, and something now, certainly in my capacity as the Commissioner of the NYPD, that we are expending a lot of time, energy, and resources on. Anything that has to do with social media today, we engage in. Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we're doing it. We now have in the NYPD the capacity to reach out to almost 1 million people almost instantaneously through our many mechanisms. Important to inform people, traffic delays, all the things that go around a venue as an event is unfolding, but also in the event of an emergency, the ability to correct very quickly inaccurate reporting, which is often the case when everybody's rushing to be first, but also to give guidance, to reassure, to calm down, to give alternative exit routes, to give alternative exit routes. So we have learned so much and continue to learn as we go forward. And NYPD is a learning organization. We always have been and always will continue to be. And in terms of our participation with entities such as ICSS in support of their mission, the idea is to share what we acquire in the way of new knowledge, but also to continually seek to acquire new knowledge from the many entities that are focused on these issues. NYPD, as you might expect, has plenty of experience handling World Series. The Yankees have appeared in 40 of them. The Mets only in 5, and unfortunately not appearing. They appeared in the World Series this time, but did not win. We've hosted games in the divisional playoff, the National League Championship Series, and most recently the World Series. All of this was occurring during the same weekend as the 46th annual New York City Marathon, the event that was held just 3 days ago. Largest marathon held anywhere in the world with 50,000 runners, 50,000 plus, 2 million spectators. To police it, we used 1,800 police officers, uniformed officers along the parade route, and hundreds of others that would have been gathered in intelligence centers, command centers, almost 14 of them along the 26-mile route. We had 13 additional command posts. We used over 14,000 of the European-style barricades along the route, about 400 rolls of blue tape, which is very beneficial where you don't necessarily need a barrier all the time, and dozens upon dozens of canines. Still one of the most reliable tools for trying to detect the issue, the concern around bombs along a very long parade route or in the many venues that we now have in the city. One of the largest media and sporting events in the world was recently held here, my first month as police commissioner in 2014, and that was Super Bowl 48. That economic stimulus to this city was $600 million in revenue for the region. It was planning for it began in 2010, almost 4 years before the event was held. Intense collaboration and emphasizing that issue of collaboration in the NYPD, that our goal is not to be fighting with anybody. The issues of security, issues around terrorism require that we have seamless cooperation and collaboration with all of our law enforcement entities. And I can proudly say to you at this particular time, that is the case, and that will remain the case as we go forward. That collaboration between the NYPD and at least 100, in our case, local, state, federal, and private agencies, including the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, Amtrak Police, New York and New Jersey State Police, New York, New Jersey Port Authority, the MTA Police, New Jersey Municipal Police, Fire Department, just to name a few. Over 100 agencies involved in the collaboration on that one event. We had an estimated 500,000 visitors over and above what we normally get in the city. This year we'll have record-breaking 59 million visitors coming to the city, many of them here for sports-related venues and activities. But in that instance, 500,000 with 83,000 actually attending the game in New Jersey. We had more than 25 distinct Super Bowl related events in New York City that week. We closed 6 blocks of our city and effectively made it into a huge Super Bowl mall, something very, very effective. But the concerns of such a large site in the heart of America's largest city, you can imagine the security concerns around that sports venue were significant. But once again, we were able to pull that off without a single incident, a single negative incident during the week. Simultaneously, we secured the tens of thousands of people that attended other events that week unrelated to the Super Bowl. Madison Square Garden, the Barclays Center, the Javits Center, Broadway, the Broadway plays, the Chinese New Year Parade. One of the great strengths of this city is the capacity to do many great events and venues all at the same time. And the collaboration to pull all of that off is essential. It's something that I think is certainly the main focus of the efforts of ICSS, your host, the idea of ensuring that there's seamless collaboration. Thousands of our cops worked 12-hour tours on Broadway along the boulevard, as we called it. Cabaret details cover the bars and nightclubs during Super Bowl weekend, and units were assigned to the various media centers all week. There were quite a few of them on site on that 6-block boulevard. We use our COBRA teams, those are the highly trained counterterrorism teams that we have, to every day scan the parking garages across the city, particularly around venues that we were working with. We had regular patrols by Emergency Service Unit, mounted canine, harbor, aviation, disorder control, critical response vehicle initiative, and our Hercules teams, which are the officers that are equipped with the heavy tactical gear, the high-powered weapons, automatic weapons, and armor. Our Operation Nexus reached out to every area hotel security director. We had a number of meetings attended by hundreds upon hundreds of security directors who we stay in touch with continually through social media connectivity, but brought them in to have firsthand presentations and all the things that we were going to do and how they could participate and cooperate with us. It was an extraordinary, successful operation. In the area of human trafficking, which is always a concern, unfortunately, around these large venues, the growth of that issue that we made over 90 arrests that we were very heavily engaged, tracking on social media, all of the various ways in which the human traffickers and organized crime now seek to expand that trade into the venues and detract so much from the success of these venues. Additionally, we had units monitoring social media for leads involving illegal drugs, solicitation, the sex trafficking, as I referenced, counterfeiting, which also is something that flourishes, as you know, during these venues, with large crowds and the pace of an event. The effort to try and move large amounts of counterfeit money is a constant in dealing with this. In the area of technology, there's no police department in America, and maybe not in the world, that is investing so much in the area of technology. This year alone, we'll invest almost $250 million of technology acquisition. By March of next year, all 35,000 of my offices will have custom-designed smartphones with custom-designed apps that will allow for instant communication from my desk, reaching out at any time to 35,000 offices to give alerts, to give notices, to post photos of people that we're concerned with. Just one element of the technology acquisition that we're making in the department that will benefit the offices in the field. Even something as useful as a language translation app on those devices. The idea that these venues attract citizens from all over the world, and the ability to communicate, to give directions, to give guidance, and certainly in times of emergency. So the custom designed app that we're working with will allow a tourist, foreign language, to speak into it, and it will be translated for the officer both in script on the device as well as orally. Similarly, guidance that he might seek to give to somebody that does not speak English, he would speak into the phone. It would then be translated both written and orally for the person that we're seeking to deal with. The technology advances are going to be phenomenal to advance the security and safety at all these venues as we go forward. We also have the capability now of cameras that we're able to mount. We use quite a few of them along the marathon route. We use quite a few of them certainly during the Super Bowl venues. The ability to put up cameras, almost 200 of them on average, at venues so that we can monitor them constantly for issues of concern. And as the facial recognition technology gets better and better, and it's rapidly improving, the ability to crowd scan, to watch for the faces of those that we might have security concerns about, that's a feature that we're particularly exploring very actively in New York and indeed in law enforcement. All of this is occurring while we're still policing the most densely populated city in America. We also recently celebrated once again the U.S. Tennis Open. That event was occurring at the same time as the United Nations 70th anniversary. We had at one time 170 of the world leaders in the 3 square mile area where you are now sitting, 170 of them, over 200 some odd active escorted convoys moving about that area, roughly all around the same time. And while we were doing that, we were also dealing with the visit of the Pope, and at the same time we were dealing, close proximity, the U.S. Open. U.S. Open is one of our most widely attended venues, 700,000 spectators. It also is the single sports event that generates the most economic benefit to the city of New York in the several weeks that it's here. Over $700 million of economic benefit from that one sporting venue in this city. Surpasses any of the other sporting venues that we have. So it's something that we take particular care with, test out a lot of our new technology. We've eliminated the glass scanning devices under vehicles and now use very sophisticated technology to scan all vehicles moving into a venue as one example of the technological advances we're making. We're also, as I think you're going to be increasingly concerned with on your venues, the issue of drones. Drones is the new frontier that we're still trying to get our arms around. We had an incident during the U.S. Open with one of them actually crashing into the stands. So that is an area that we are spending a lot of our time and energy looking at, monitoring, seeing who's doing what around the world. So in closing, what I want to do is say, well, as it relates to my city, New York City, and as we continue to seek to be one of the most active sports centers in the world, that our focus is always going to be to ensure that that continues, that we continue to attract that economic stimulation to the city, the jobs it creates, the excitement, the satisfaction, that we will be focusing on the insurance of the major themes of this conference, of collaboration, of communication, of synergy, the idea that we really have to work together to keep all of these venues safe going forward. So I applaud the efforts of your hosts. That I was very impressed when I visited Qatar 5 years ago when this initiative was launched, and I applaud the continuation and expansion of it. It is something that is needed, it's something that's necessary, and it's something whose initiatives and efforts are going to be necessary going into the future. So enjoy your time here in New York, and enjoy your time certainly in this conference. You have an excellent array of speakers. And I'm going to get off the stage so you can get one of those speakers up here, somebody I'm sure you're very interested in hearing from, the former Secretary of State, and I'll hopefully have the opportunity to stay around and listen to it myself. All the best, and enjoy New York City.